where the observer is traveling at high speeds relative to that of light. A simple relation between the length and speed of an object can be described in the following equation. That is, LV equals L0 times the square root of 1 minus V squared divided by C squared. Here LV is the length of the moving object, and L0 is the length of an object that is standing still. And V here is the velocity at which the object is moving. And C is the light speed, which is 100,000 kilometers per second. So this equation tells us that the length of an object which is moving is a proportion to the length of this same object when it's standing still. And the proportion is square root of 1 minus V squared divided by C squared. So as we can see, if the object is moving at very high speed, say approaching the light speed, then V squared divided by C squared is going to be 1 or close to 1. So if an object is moving at the speed of light, then this thing under the square root will vanish, will be 0. Therefore, the length of the object will be also 0. So in this case, theoretically, the length and the volume of any object could vanish under some condition. So for instance, using our common example, under some certain conditions, you will not see any distance between a nearby object, say the lecture hall here in Toowoomba, the Pureland College in Australia, the White House in Washington, D.C. in the USA. So you won't see the difference in distance between these two objects. Or put it differently, under some conditions, you may be able to appear in the location in Washington, D.C. and the location here in Toowoomba, Australia. Or, in other words, you may be able to appear on the Earth and also on Mars at the same time, as the distance between the two objects, the Earth and Mars, vanishes. So Dr. Stan Aldenwald, NASA's space scientist, concludes that objects can be in many places at the same time. Therefore, distance is not real. This notion is consistent with Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching in the Infinite Life Sutra. In the sutra, Buddha said, "The Buddha does come without coming from anywhere. He lives, but without going anywhere. He was neither born, nor will he pass away." Can be found in the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy of the Flower Adornment Sutra. It is said, "In each of the innumerable Buddha's lands, I manifested transformation bodies as numerous as the number of fine dusts in incalculable new numbers of Buddha lands." So we can see that the Buddha and Bodhisattva Universal Worthy have the ability to appear in infinite number of worlds at the same time. This ability can now be understood by modern physics. Regarding time, the theory of relativity also provides an intriguing viewpoint. A cornerstone premise in Einstein's physics is the constancy of light speed. That is, light travels at precisely 299,792 kilometers per second, or approximately 300,000 kilometers per second. And the light speed is the highest speed an object can attain in the universe. Nothing can travel faster than light. And scientists cannot prove this assumption, but simply take it for granted. So now let's just assume this assumption is true and look at the conclusion from relativity theory. Let's first consider a simple example in our daily life. Suppose we are walking in a fast-moving chain. We feel that we are walking slowly inside the chain, but an external observer sees that we are passing by him very fast, precisely at the chain speed. This is because our relative speed is very low with respect to the chain. But our relative speed is very high with respect to the external observer. Now let's suppose we occupy a spacecraft instead of a chain, and the spacecraft is moving at extreme speed, say approaching the speed of light, apart from the Earth. And from the spacecraft, we use a special clock device to send forth a light signal in every second to an external observer on Earth. In a spacecraft passenger's eyes, the relative motion of the passenger within the spacecraft is that of standing still with respect to the spacecraft. In other words, the relative speed of the passenger with respect to the spacecraft is very low, approach to zero. But with respect to the external observer, the passenger is moving very fast apart from him, from the external observer. So for the rapidly moving spacecraft passengers, the clock on board seems to move normally without any change in the time length of a second. And for the external observers, they received light signal from the clock on this fast-moving spacecraft at a much longer time interval. The interval between seconds increase. This is because the speed of the light signal with respect to the Earth observer is lower than the absolute light speed. So that is, for the external observer on Earth, the clock on board appears to tell the time more slowly, so that time appears to stretch out. So in effect, for anyone moving at high relative speeds, time stretched out. This is called time dilation. Therefore, time is just an illusion. Theoretically, you may be able to stretch time from very short intervals to extremely long intervals without making any change to yourselves and your own objects. So in fact, we believe that Buddha has attained this level of ability. In the Infinite Life Sutra, for instance, it is said, the Buddha possesses unfathomable wisdom. He has no obstacles. In one single instant, he can dwell in innumerable billions of eons. But his body and all sense organs. Why is it? Because the Buddha's concentration and wisdom are boundless and free of obstructions.